Вылазьте, блядь, сдавайтесь, не будем убивать. Монка, слышь, Монка, блядь. Монка нахуй. Гранату закинь.
It is scary to jump into the enemy's trench, of course, says a fighter of the 810th Marine Brigade of the Black Sea Fleet with the call sign Losyash. But getting to this trench is even more difficult.
Народ, давай нахуй этот, тащи.
And you understand that as well. And there is no time to be afraid. You still do what you have to do. If you hesitate at this moment, that is it. You will reflect later about the Black Sea Marines fight in the Kursk border region. This was from an interview with several Russian soldiers by RIA Novosti. And for the second time, Losyash continues, I would like to say that it is less scary, but that is not true. But in a sense it is easier. You know that the task is feasible and the person is against you as much as you are against them. But we broke through to them under fire and they were sitting in a shelter. But the more we enter, the more experience we get. Fear becomes normal. The main thing is to overcome it. Now for Losyash, the SMO began in Popasnaya. He got into the 810th Brigade in February of 2024. From the commander of the Fire Support Platoon, he grew to the deputy of the company, but still participates in assaults, although it's the hardest part. BBC Russian reported on the renewed Ukrainian push in Kursk on February 6 as follows. Exactly 6 months ago, Ukrainian troops invaded the Kursk region. Then they managed to capture more than 1,000 square kilometers of Russian territory. Despite the fact that Russian troops managed to recapture most of the lost territory in 6 months, about 500 square kilometers of the Kursk region still remained under the control of the armed forces of Ukraine, including the district center of Sudza. The current intensification of hostilities took place southeast of the city. This section of the front does not look promising for the armed forces of Ukraine. There is a difficult and sparsely populated area, and the main cities of the Kursk region are located in other directions north of Sudza. Probably the purpose of this Ukrainian operation is to push back to the east the Russian units that have moved closer to the others, to the district center, and remove the threat of its assault. In case of the loss of control of the armed forces of Ukraine over Sudza, the retention of the rest of the territory of the Kursk region loses its meaning. In case of success of the Ukrainian counteroffensive, the threat already hangs over the Russian group which makes its way to Sudza from the southeast near the village of Plehovo. It can be surrounded both from the north and from the south from the Ukrainian border. It is off-road there and it's very hard to leave. But at the moment, the operation of the armed forces of Ukraine looks like a local one. Russian military experts, as before, do not rule out that this is a distracting strike.
Монка, слышь, Монка, блядь. Монка нахуй.
So today I will do an even deeper dive into the Kursk incursion, particularly with the Ukrainian renewed offensive on February 6. The bulk of today's report, however, will be based on an interview with several Russian soldiers fighting in that region with the 810th Marine Brigade. Now for all of you who came here from the old Whips channel and were accustomed to frontline debates, this video will be right up your alley. I just ask everyone to help this channel, which was born out of the bad news of the demonetization of my first channel, to help it grow as quickly as possible by sharing the video, hitting the like button and the notification bell, and most of all, by subscribing. I plan to get monetized within 6 months or by the end of July this year, God's willing. So with that, let's get into it. The Kursk offensive has mystified many, both at its inception on August 6th and even exactly 6 months later to the T on February 6th when Ukraine launched a new counteroffensive. Russian media described it as complex and unique at the same time. They write that on August 6th, the troops of the Kiev regime broke into the territory of the region and probably, for the first time in military history, the Ukrainian enemy officially admitted that his regular army was carrying out a terrorist operation with hostage-taking, torture and murder of civilians. The Ukrainian does not hide that there is no military sense in the attack. There is only a blind, irrational certainty that part of the territory of the region will be valuable exchange cards in the negotiations, where there is no place for Ukraine. Yesterday, Zelensky said that the Kursk region is an important part of any future agreements on the end of the conflict. That is why the armed forces of Ukraine send more and more reserves there, although it's a one-way road. That is why our army, the Russian army, near Kursk, sends hundreds of Ukrainian militants to Bandera every day, and that's a quotation, whose obituaries have already accumulated over 58,000 during the liberation of the region, which helps our troops to advance faster in other parts of the front. What perhaps makes it the most difficult to get a good picture of what's really occurring on the ground is the diametrically conflicting accounts from both sides. Both sides declare huge losses of the enemy for 6 months of fighting. The summary of the Russian Ministry of Defense as of February 5th states that during the hostilities in the Kursk region, the armed forces of Ukraine lost more than 57,655 servicemen, hundreds of tanks, infantry fighting vehicles, armored personnel carriers, and artillery guns, thousands of armored and conventional vehicles. The armed forces of the Russian Federation continue to defeat the formations of the armed forces of Ukraine on the territory of the Kursk region, the Russian Military of Defense reported. The Ukrainian General Staff, however, states that since the beginning of the Kursk operation, the total losses of the Russian enemy are about 40,000 people, of which more than 16,000 have been killed. 909 Russian servicemen have been captured. Russia was also forced to ask for help from North Korea, which sent 12,000 of its servicemen to Kursk. The total losses of the DPRK contingent amounted to about 4,000 people, the Ukrainian General Staff claims. But what we have today is several accounts from several Russian soldiers from the 810th Marine Black Sea Fleet Brigade in the Kursk region. Their story seems balanced and realistic, as they admit that the fighting there is very difficult and bloody, but at the same time they are sure that the Russians are winning. First soldier went by the call sign Losyash. He started off his interview with a comparison of Kursk to other battles in the Donbass. Yes, it was also difficult in Artyomsk or near Krinky, but then the Ukrainian enemy did not have this many drones. And here in August, we entered the battle literally from the wheels. We landed and 3 columns of lightly armored vehicles were coming upon us. They were stopped. We worked with ATGMs, AGS and mortars. And even from the 82nd Brigade's mortar, we were able to hit the moving targets. From there, the Ukrainian infantry immediately fell. In that battle, his unit hit 12 pieces of equipment, he says. Losyash and his colleagues speak about Western weapons without much enthusiasm. In quotations, there is good equipment, and there is also an M113, but they don't handle the ATGMs or mortars, even large caliber machine guns, very well, says the grey-bearded, broad-shouldered fighter with the call sign Google. He is 60 years old. In quotations, so far I am doing well, he says modestly, and explains why he went as a volunteer. There were friends, acquaintances who were at war. I thought, give me a try. Google confirms that, despite the abundance of Western weapons, the armed forces of Ukraine have had to gut the almost empty Soviet reserves. In particular, in one of the battles, they took almost a museum trophy, a mortar with a 1938 bed and a barrel from the 1940s. One of the ATGM operators with the call sign Google said, however, that the area is not suitable after the Ukrainians went on the defense. Their equipment now operates from dense forest plantations. Ammunition and provisions for our fighters at positions are delivered to a safe place, and Google drags them to the front. He throws the ammo on his shoulders and moves forward to deliver with a smile. However, there are no safe places on the front. Drones are the main threat. The armed forces of Ukraine have a lot of them. The units of Reb and Bulat's help, we constantly see that the Ukrainian enemy acts in a pair of drones, the Mavic and with them the FPV. explains the fighter with the call sign Chef, who delivers personnel and supplies to the landing point, which are then brought by Google. He remembers a recent curious case. They went to pull out the stock equipment. As soon as the issue was fixed, the Russian fighters pushed to scatter. They saw enemy UAVs. 2 birds were downed, however, even without the help of electronic warfare. When I was injured, drones rescued me. I was already thinking, that is it. We were surrounded. 4 of us against 2 dozen. We fought back for 11 hours, says a fighter with the call sign Mole. All 4 got out. Strike UAV suppressed the enemy and covered the retreat. Call sign Mole then received several fragments of a grenade in his legs from the tank shell in the head, chest, and neck. All the fighters emphasize experience counts. When you've already spent some time here, you know how to behave. For example, you know how to hide from a drone. You can't look at it as you are very noticeable from above. As soon as you raise your head, it sees you. And on some drones, there is technology whereby the cameras highlight soldiers' faces to make it easier for the cameraman. Like the camera focuses into squares, explains the Chef. Fighters often just freeze. If you're not in a shelter, you're dead. You hear what's flying into you, try to maneuver somehow, change the direction of movement. Large agricultural hexacopters or octocopters converted by the armed forces of Ukraine cause a lot of trouble. They are called Baba Yanga drones. The armed forces of Ukraine now have drones on fiber optics. They adopted this effective weapon from the Russian troops. But despite the abundance of technical means, the Ukrainian enemy is forced to retreat. Any offensive, says the fighter with the call sign Kursk, looks like this. We, together with the birds, go to the best positions to hit the enemy's manpower and to allow ours to approach. When the enemy realizes what is happening, his artillery is turned on us, and the counter-battery fight begins on both sides. They try to fire on us, and we crush them in response. As soon as ours reach the enemy positions, we push our fire deep into the front. We cut off the enemy's reinforcements. He has been in the team since 2023, but had served in Tajikistan, the Second Chechen War. He was called to the Omega Battalion by the commander of the unit with the call sign Lawrence Berrier, an old acquaintance. I am proud to serve in the 810th, and our battalion in particular. We have very worthy commanders, Pukus notes. For him, the service in the brigade began in the Kherson region, but everything that happened before cannot be compared with the battles in the Kursk region. We stopped the enemy's breakthrough. It was very hot. Artillery duels take place here all the time. Several mortars were destroyed like that, the fighter continues. Only there they start working. Immediately the team Ushakov, which is the name of our unit, goes to battle. According to Pukus, 85% of the shots either hit the target or near it, and thus there is a high probability of being hit by shrapnel. We adjust the fire. We keep in communication with our UAV operators. In general, the shells are landing where they need to, and they arrive in tons, he adds. Already here, near Kursk, Pukus unexpectedly began to write poems for himself. My wife was surprised. They say she went completely crazy after the war, and they tell her, listen to me, your husband is a creative person. He dedicated several poems to you. The first poem was still about fallen comrades. When I was writing, tears came to my eyes, Pukus admits. He, like other Marines, has no doubt that the armed forces of Ukraine will be knocked out of the Kursk region. Yes, the enemy gathered everyone he could there, but this is our land, for which our ancestors shed blood for generations, says the artilleryman. So let all these mercenaries and Ukrainians trained in the West come here. We will send them to heaven. We will have a new teleport soon.